Next, I'm pleased to introduce Fire Chief Randy Krause with the Port of Seattle Fire Department. Randy has 35 years of experience as a firefighter and a leader. During his career, he has held positions of increasing responsibility across the career spectrum, from firefighter to his current position as fire chief for the Port of Seattle Fire Department at SeaTac International Airport. Prior to coming to the Port of Seattle, Randy was the Deputy Fire Chief of Training, Compliance, and Safety for the Boeing Fire Department. In this role, he was responsible for managing the training and safety programs of 300 fire department personnel located throughout the United States. He began his firefighting career in 1985 while serving in the United States Air Force. Thank you. And at Boeing, he reached 20 years of service prior to his departure. As a respected subject matter expert in aircraft rescue firefighting, Randy has had the opportunity to influence aircraft rescue firefighting regulations, standards, and processes through various national and international committees and working groups. He is very engaged with and an active member of the NFPA ARRF Technical Committee, involved in writing the NFPA 402, 403, 405, 408, 412, 414, 422, and 424. He has also taken the chair position for NFPA 1500, 1521, 1561, and 1581 through 85. Randy has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Business Administration from the University of Washington, Bothell, and a Master's of Arts in Organizational Leadership from Gonzaga University. Thank you for being here, and I'll turn the session over to you, Randy.
Thank you, Dr. Reade. Really appreciate it, and thanks to the committee for allowing me to speak today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you see that okay? So I thought I would take this opportunity. I really appreciate the work that the committee is doing here. Talk about some from the firefighter perspective, and then from a fire chief perspective. So just kind of a brief history, as Anna said, I started my fire service career in the Department of Defense in the Air Force in 1985. And so as a user, as a firefighter, I thought I'd talk about my experience using foam and how it's escalated and changing over the course of my career. My first original assignment in the Air Force was Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, Montana. And I remember we had a facility or a aircraft mock-up prop that was out in the middle of a field, very remote in a rural area, which we thought was safe, but we would throw foam, AFFF mil-spec foam, regularly out into that environment in the middle of that field. And we would drape and drop fuel over the top of it. And we would put that out for our training. And we did that quite regularly. After I left Montana as an assignment, I went to Kunsan Air Base, South Korea. And similar there, we had an open pit facility where it'd be like water on top of it. We would put fuel, waste, solvents, paints into the mix, and then we'd light it on fire. And then we would use our turrets and throw foam onto it to extinguish a fire. So in the early years, in 1985, I recall, we used to use mil-spec AFFF foam to clean floors, wash trucks, and we often would just throw it on each other during our training environment so that we could experience that foam coming over the top of us and clearing a visual path so that we could see what we were doing. My last duty assignment was at Castle Air Force Base in Merced, California, and we had a similar approach to firefighter training was the same. We had an open pit area, we would light it on fire and throw foam onto it. Then I moved on to the Boeing Company in 1990 and spent 20 years in private industry. And as aircraft manufacturer, in my early career at Boeing, same thing, we had an open pit, but we were close to the Duwamish River, and they had been doing that type of training for many, many, many years. And I'm going to use a caveat as we, as firefighters, were led to believe, even though I started my career in 1985, some of the documentation on mil-spec foam that contained fluorine that I've had my hands on recently actually told the community, the firefighting community, that this particular product was safe, that it was biodegradable, that it was not of risk to the environment. And we have definitely learned a lot since then. And fast forward to 2010, I became the fire chief in March of 2010 at the Port of Seattle, SeaTac International Airport. And we had transitioned for years. This airport had a training facility or training prop that was very similar. It's basically a whole dugout. We'd throw fuel over the top of it, then we'd come in with our trucks and use the fluorine-based mil-spec to put it out. Since I've been at the airport, we have not done that. And in the early 90s, we had a training facility built out in North Bend, another pristine environment, but we have never used mil-spec or AFFF foam out there. So it's been many years since we've used AFFF for training. But my transition through as a user, firefighter, fighting fire, now as a fire chief, my number one priority is the safety and health of not only myself, but my firefighters first and foremost. And that's going to lead me into kind of my next few slides are going to show you kind of, I never know what I'm going to get myself into, but I'm really, and I don't often say no. So I find myself here today before you, getting a chance to speak with you and applaud you for the great work that you're trying to do, because I think it'll become, you talk about testing, whether you're testing urine, blood, saliva. I had the opportunity to help write a grant for the Firefighter Cancer Cohort study. And as part of that grant, I was able to allow several of my firefighters at no cost as part of the grant participate in the Fire Cancer Cohort study, in which they're tested our blood for PFAS chemicals, and basically 9 different chemicals that I'll show you here shortly that are also tested by the CDC and are common in most of us in the U.S. that we have it within our system. So Firefighter Cancer Cohort Study, if you're not familiar with, is a multi-city national research effort established in July 2016. It's a FEMA-funded firefighter cancer cohort study, and they're looking at epidemiologic surveys, biomarkers, and exposure data focused on carcinogenic exposure and health effects. So it's a 30-year study. Their goal is to test 10,000 firefighters, and we're really appreciative of all of the great work that they're doing in this space and helping us, because we don't know what we don't know. And I'll show you what my personal test results are, and still there's no health indicator that says if you have this chemical in your system, it is going to equate to something else. So I applaud the work that you guys are doing, and hopefully you'll help me not only answer questions for myself, but also for my firefighters. So I think I break it down into PFAS as my world as a fire chief. I get involved in it from the environmental perspective. In the state of Washington, I can no longer use a fluorinated foam unless it's only for emergency purposes, right? I can't use it for training. So I have generations of firefighters that haven't had the opportunity to use this foam in a training environment because we haven't used it for years. And it's also been regulated in the state of Washington that I can't use it except for emergency purposes. There's another area of work going on, which is performance, which is the FAA regulates the type of foam that I'm allowed to use at our airport and airports across the U.S. And they're working hard to find an equitable substitute for the current mil-spec foam. And then the work that you guys are doing is in this health envelope, which I applaud. And once I have had my blood tested. I'll show you that shortly. But it's once you get those results, I'm hoping that you're going to help me answer not only for myself but my firefighters those questions. So I really like how the Firefighter Cancer Cohort Study and the group created this matrix, and the green is what would be mine. The orange is the average amount measured in my department. Then they use the NHANES 50th and 95th percentile. And then the yellow, there's a yellow line that shows you the range of the firefighters from my department and their results. So this is my actual results. Figure 1 is PFOA. So it shows that this red circle is the 95th percentile NHANES, and then I'm grouped basically with 50th percentile and the average within my department, basically. Same goes for figure 2. Then you have figure 3. So as a firefighter, this is my personal information. I'm kind of closer to the 95th percentile. So what does that mean? I don't know, right? I mean, as you start testing or you get test results and are providing guidance to medical professionals, I'm just the fire chief. I don't know medically what that means or what it potentially means. I just know that's my personal result. Then if you look at figure 4, I'm 3, I'm in between the 50th percentile, above my average in my department. Same thing with figure 3, I was above the average within my department. Figure 5, that's my indicator, the PFHXS. I'm outside of the window of 95th percentile and Haynes. I don't know what that means, but it gives me a data point. And then figure 6, figure 7, figure 8, and then you have figure 9. Pretty much, for the most part, everything seems kind of normal. There is some measurable PFAS chemicals in my system, but most of them are around the average. And this is kind of a chart that they provided back after our results. And on the left side, I put PFOA, and I took this from some of the literature that Elizabeth had sent me. And PFOA lasts 2.1 to 10.1 years, PFAS 3.3 to 27 years, then PFHXS 4.7 to 35 years. And where I found it interesting is that in the where I have circled here, the 6.2 is the outlier that I had for PFHXS is above the 95th percentile, and it's one of those products that has long sustainable potential life within my system. So what does that mean? I'm not sure. And I talked to Dr. Burgess from University of Arizona this morning, and he's been working with us for the Firefighter Cancer Cohort study, and he's seeing that the PFHXS and the PFOS are the two elevated areas that he is seeing in the firefighting community. And I took that straight from information that was provided to me by Elizabeth. And that's all I had to share. And I really want to say thank you and applaud you for the work that you're doing. And I kind of touched on it, that I often don't know what I'm getting myself into, but everything is interconnected and interrelated in some way. And I find it fascinating that, and I'm excited to hear what your work ends up, the end result of your work. So thank you so much for your time, and appreciate the opportunity today.